Is that even working? Who the fuck knows, huh? You turn that off, don't I? Otherwise we'll be getting on the YouTubes ban list. Just trying out that camera angle really. I don't know if it's going to shake itself to death if you'll be able to hear me over the little van or what. So really the whole kind of premise is I recently, well 6-7 months ago, started, well actually more than that, 7, 8, 9 months ago, started looking into a vehicle repair franchise, mobile repair franchise in the UK. Obviously when the territories are available, they're kind of listed for sale on business sites and franchise sites and stuff like that. And I just thought, well, it might be an alright way of getting a little bit of revenue, ultimately your own business. But the big thing for me was to get the pipeline of inquiries, which it's hard to create a pipeline of work from a standing start, and that was really the main attraction of that, was that they had national advertising accounts, fully automated kind of functional websites and CRM systems and everything you would need to do it. So I thought, yeah, we'll give that a go. Obviously, you get presented with the franchisee packs and stuff like that, where they tell you how much, rough cases places are going to make, and all of the costs and everything that's involved. So I took quite a bit of time looking over that. Went to look at a few places, spoke to a bunch of franchisees who were already running. Some have been running for like 3-4 years, others 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14 years. Everything looked great. The area that I was looking at was in the northeast of England, which in hindsight, which I'll get onto a bit later on, I should have probably been a bit more wary. Obviously the due diligence you can do is kind of presented by the business, so all of the due diligence that you can carry out is kind of cherry picked to show the upside, I guess, than what you would see from the reality of a few people. And obviously having done it for 6 months, I can certainly say that there's a few reasons why some places are better than others, and why you should probably take a wider view on where you want to put your money. But yeah, so you end up, you go down, you get your sales presentation, because that's all it is really, is to sell you that territory, to sell you that franchise. It doesn't matter if you succeed, it doesn't matter if you fail, because they're just going to recycle and resell that territory, so it doesn't really matter to them. They get their money either way, and obviously they get their ongoing monthly fees every month. A lot of them require you to buy all of your equipment from them, all your stores and everything like that, which is fine, because you end up with essentially a 30-day payment term straight off the bat, which again you wouldn't necessarily get if you just went as a new business to a supplier. You'd have to pay cash, you'd be on pro forma, wouldn't you? Which isn't a bad place to be honest, because you don't have that big fee coming out at the end of the month. But ultimately it also gives you a month to make that money back, if you're buying a lot of equipment, which so swings and roundabouts to each one. It's however you like to do business. I like to buy my things, and then you make enough money, you buy it, you've got it, and then you can carry on. If you're always on the never buying tools and equipment and consumables, then you're probably digging yourself a little bit of a hole. You've got to make sure you've got that revenue coming in, obviously. Which is any business, it's not just franchises, that's obviously any business. So yeah, did the sales padder. You run through your own financials, so you have to do your own obviously financial plan and what your revenue, expected revenue and things like that are. They give you kind of average repair values which you can use as a baseline, and the average repair value, to be fair, isn't that far off. Probably go through some numbers a little bit later on. I'll keep it fairly vague though, so obviously I can't really say who it was, where it was, but it was just to give you a kind of an overview of franchises in the UK and whether you should buy one. Obviously that's up to you. I wouldn't. Not now. So just parked up, driving the van. So I did like I say, it was a car repair franchise. Always been into cars, obviously messed around with cars, bikes, for as long as I can kind of remember really. So it seemed like a good fit. Went through, did all the training, so you pay your lump sum, you get your, basically buy your territory, you buy your franchise. Went and did a load of training, which was good. Kind of alarm bells start ringing towards the end of the training when start speaking to people. You get put in touch with more local kind of franchisees. This is how this franchise works. It may not be the same for everyone. You might just get left to it, which is fair enough. It's up to you, you know, it's your business at the end of the day. And it is your business because you're your own limited company, your own VAT entity, all that sort of thing. So you put your money down. We'll move off again. So you put your money down, you buy your franchise, you get your territory. Obviously you get your kind of website built, your page on the website. It's a landing page basically with your reviews and things on. You get that. Obviously you've got your phone number. I guess we should, yeah, well it's all included. So you buy that, you get your territory, you get your equipment, you get all your startup consumables, enough to last you kind of 3 to 6 months depending on how busy you are. You have to provide your own van. I bought this one. It's a 2021 Transit Custom short wheelbase. I then paid to have it racked out in the back, and then obviously you get your branding, decals, vinyls and things put on, which you have to pay for as well. There's different ways to do it. It depends if you buy your own van or lease a van. When I did finally get a lease quote for the van, it was north of £800 a month, which is wild. So I didn't do that. I bought my own, and then I racked it out and stuff like that. So you do that. You buy all your stuff. You got your stuff. You do your training. You do a little bit of training on the internal CRM. They're all different, obviously, and the systems that are in place for that. That was fine, and then kind of basically away you go. Obviously stick to the smaller repairs, so it is things like bumper corners, scuffs, texture repairs, bits of alloy wheels and things like that. The training that you got from the one that I was involved in was actually pretty good. Lots of systems, lots of ways to do different repairs and things like that. It depends if you're minded that way as well, I guess, because some people pick it up quicker than others, and some people are more hands-on and a bit happier to do that type of work, or maybe a high level of hand skills, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm an ex-Air Force technician, and then I worked subsea engineering for a number of years. Lots of mechanical, hydraulic, kind of, that's my background. So I'm happy working with my hands and doing bits and pieces, so it wasn't a stretch. So you pay a bunch of money out, and it's quite a chunk of money, and then you've got to buy your van or lease your van, which is another chunk of money. You get it racked out if you don't lease it, a chunk of money, blah blah blah. Anyway, what then happens is obviously you're out and about, so you go off and you do your first few jobs, and then what you find out is, Jesus Christ, like downtown Basra. Sorry, the road system. Yep, so then you're out and about and you're starting to do your own work. Obviously you expect the first kind of 3 or 4 months to be really quiet because it's essentially a start-up, especially if the territory's been empty or vacated for a while. Then obviously the geo tagged kind of the localized marketing isn't there, because why would they want to market an area to customers that doesn't have anyone to fill the work? It's just throwing money away, right? Giving money to Google and Facebook and whatever. So yeah, so you start up, you go out and you do your leaflet and you do your bits and pieces. That's all fine, you kind of expect it. So yeah, so you just basically you're building your business from that point. The problem comes, or the problem came for me, I did 6 months monitoring the financials fairly closely, because obviously it needs to make money. And as we got towards month 3 and 4, I actually took on another territory, a neighbouring territory as well, and switched to a territory which had a larger city in. And I think this is where the issue really kind of comes into effect for, well, certainly for me, from my experience with this franchise, was I switched to a larger city, 2 neighbouring franchisees, one further north and one basically cutting that major city in half. The city that I was in had 300,000 people in, so the volume, because it's a numbers game, so you might get 50 leads and you might convert 10% of that if you're lucky, really. So obviously the more leads you've got coming in, if you're converting 10, 15, 20%, you need more leads to fill your pipeline, to fill your diary up. We had a good month where I was busy most days, 2 jobs, most days, or 1 big job. Still obviously trying to maintain the leads and get the quotations in, try and turn quotations into book jobs. Didn't really plan out that way, or didn't really fall out that way, more accurately. Lots of inquiries, and then obviously you you get in touch with people to do an estimate and they vanish, which that's every job, every trade. You give them the estimate, they obviously don't like the price and vanish. You can't get hold of them again, which is fine. Not even a thank you, kiss me arse, get fucked, nothing, just vanishing, which is really annoying because you're spending all your time chasing people who were never that serious. And that's another problem, is anyone can go on a website and request an estimate. So do they really want one, or are they just saying if it's 25 quid? Because it isn't 25 quid, it's more like 225 quid. So yeah, so anyway, had this big had a decent month, thought we'd be making a bit of money that month, bearing in mind I hadn't paid myself for 6 months, because the business hadn't actually covered its costs. So went out, did this fairly good month, which was probably around £4,500 of revenue turnover, including VAT. So you know, £4,500 to £5,000 including the VAT. And then when you sit and do the numbers, still didn't actually cover costs. So I found that I would be out all month, every day. You know, fuel for the van, all the paint consumables, all of the everything, sanding discs, white roll, you know, paper towels, solvent cleaners, various chemicals, you know, lacquer, paint, body filler, everything all racks up. Plus you've got things like your insurances, car insurance, public liability insurance, trade insurance. Yeah, so we basically made no money, still didn't make any money, and that was out all month. So at that point took the decision to exit that business, because if basically there was no way for me to expand that pipeline other than somehow magicking in an extra kind of 50 or 60 jobs that I could then cherry pick, the easy jobs that you can do in 2 hours, 3 hours. So I just thought it wasn't viable at that point. Obviously, it will depend on the franchise, won't it? Because it will depend what your franchise is doing. For me, I wouldn't buy a franchise again. Exited the franchise, basically lost a lot of the investment. It did me, lost a lot. So I certainly wouldn't look to do it again. Obviously, it's not all lost because you've got a lot of, well, it's not all lost because you have kind of upskilled yourself, haven't you, with the training, with the business and what you've been doing. So you never really lose it. It's just an expensive education. So yeah. But anyway, I think the real crux of what I'm trying to say is you've got your due diligence, which you need to take with a pinch of salt. I would also ask what the previous franchisee turned over, or what the neighbouring franchisees all turned over, because they do have that data. They tell you they won't, but they do. I would look to get all of that information to see exactly how much the last person made. And when you do your business plan, you'll see that you're probably not actually going to make that much money, because the ongoing franchise costs, they might take $2,500 off you, and then the rest of your money is spent on consumables and fuel and getting a coffee and something to eat when you're out on the road all day. So you need to really, really pin it down to the penny what you're going to be doing. The biggest factor as well that I found where I am, the biggest factor is that pipeline, that number of people. If you're in the southeast, if you're near a major city, if you're near a Birmingham, a London, a Glasgow and Edinburgh, then hopefully you're going to have that pipeline. So you might have 3 million people, and the franchise is cut into 2 or 3. So you've still got potentially 1 million customers that you can fill your inquiry pipeline up with. If you're in an area like me where there's 300,000 people, which is cut in half, so 150,000 people, then obviously you've got a much smaller funnel to fill up, or to pull from, to fill up with. And that leads on to another issue, which is obviously your local market and how price sensitive your local market is. Northeast, traditionally fairly price sensitive. Some people argue that it isn't, but it definitely is. There's also a lot of people who will work for not a lot of money. So there are a lot of guys out there where we are that'll do a bumper corner for £120 with no VAT. If you're doing a standard repair, and your kind of standard cost, or where you want to be for that morning's work or that afternoon's work is more like 190 plus a VAT, then you're at like 210, 220 quid. You're £100 more than them. And if these people are just returning that car to a lease company, which, let's face it, most of them are, then you're going to go for the cheapest, aren't you? Because I would. So there's a lot of local factors in it, and a larger factor, and it's before you get into like the wider economy, the state of it at the minute, plus all the taxes on businesses and everything else. Are just, viability is so low. What I'd really say is you need to really, if you're not good at the financials, you need to get good at the financials, because if you don't know where your money's going, you think you're making money, but you aren't. You're unlikely to be. Now that said, if you set yourself up and you do a bunch of Google ads and Facebook ads, and go out and actually beat the streets with your little feet, take yourself into all these dealerships, get yourself out and about to places, and you can make your own money without the franchise company taking it straight out your pocket. I think it's possible. There's definitely work there. It's just, if you have to pay such high levels of fees, high levels of consumables, don't get me wrong, the paying system and things like that probably are one of the better ones on the market. It costs more money, right? It's just the nature of the game. But there's other options you can do, or other options you can use. So swings and roundabouts, innit? Swings and roundabouts. It is what it is, and all that shit. Yeah. So you really need, if you're looking at the car repair franchise models, you really need to think. It's the finance. You've got to go into the finances. If you're not good at it, get someone who's good at it. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people making strong money in the business. There are. There's a lot of people turning over a lot of money. But like I say, you'll find out that a lot of those people are in areas with high population, or they're in areas of where a high portion of the population are quite wealthy and aren't susceptible to local economic shocks, or the larger economic shocks that we're seeing at the moment. So it's very, very important, I think, to look at everything in the wider kind of economic lens and the wider financial lens. Will I do it again? No, I wouldn't. Not any franchise, nothing. Well, actually, I say that. A McDonald's or a Costa, you're probably all right. Anything else, I think you just fill in the pockets of the franchisors. And ultimately, you're working for them. In my experience, it's my experience. I can only talk on it. It is what it is. But ultimately, you're only really filling the pockets of the franchisors. Ongoing fees, IT fees, marketing fees, everything. You can do your own marketing. There's courses on. There's plenty of little courses on Facebook and Google and stuff, which you can do for free. Which we'll be doing next, because what's next, we don't really know. So yeah, sorry, this isn't really very structured, is it? To be honest, it's just me kind of whinging on the camera. If there is any interest, I will do a bit more. But honestly, feel free to drop me a comment if you're looking, or drop me a message if you're looking into it yourself and you want a bit more detail, or where you want a bit more detail, and I can go into it because obviously I've lived it, I've been through it. I can kind of give you the full financial picture. I just kind of feel it's all missold, really, a lot of it, if you're not in the correct area at the correct time. But you've got to take a view on that. You've got to make your own decision. I did. I don't regret the decision, but I wouldn't do it again. So yeah, that's probably enough whinging for today, isn't it? Battery's running out in that anyway. I don't even know if this will work because they're in the van and it's making a racket. So yeah, see you in a bit.